Welcome to another S&P 500 analysis. Today is December 18, 2021. On Wednesday, the S&P 500 rallied from the FOMC announcement and showed sign of a standard rally and turned what was a negative week so far into a positive week. But shortly after the S&P 500 shown to make a gain for the week to date, it reversed direction, and by the close of the week, the S&P 500 gave back all the gains off the FOMC announcement and ended the week with a loss. Was that a major reversal, a sign of a market that had topped? In this video, we will look at the market internals, the sentiment, and the price action of the indexes and see if the S&P 500 told us a top has been made. In addition, we will also look at two S&P 500 stocks, Apple and Tesla, to see what they are telling us and where they might be headed. Stay tuned. Let's start with this weekly chart of the S&P 500. The S&P 500 had a range of 132 points and ended the week with a 91-point loss, or almost a loss of 2%. It finished at 4,620.64. Last week's high was above the previous week high, and the low was also above the previous week low. So it is still in a weekly one-time framing up. It closed above this rising 10-week moving average and also this 40-week moving average, and still in the upper half of the multi-year price channel. So from this perspective, the S&P 500 is still in an uptrend on a weekly basis. Looking at this sentiment chart, we see the VIX is back inside of this 20-30 zone. So the market participants are showing some sign of fear. And also the put-call ratio is still underneath this 0.75, but it is moving up toward it. So the market participant could be starting to reduce some risk. And for the up-down volume ratio, for most part of the week, it was negative. In other words, there were more down volume than up volume, except on Wednesday during the FOMC announcement. Similarly, for the advanced decline, you can see that throughout the week, the decliner was outnumbered the advancer, except on Wednesday, where the advancing issue outnumbered the declining issues. And for the New York Stock Exchange new high, new low, we're still seeing new low outnumber the new high. You see that on Friday, there were 167 new 52-week low versus 41 new 52-week high. And you can see also just on the new high, new low difference, we see that the new low predominantly overrun the new high throughout the week, except just marginally the new high outnumbered the new low on Wednesday. And for the cumulative advanced decline on the New York Stock Exchange, it appeared that one might make a point that we are seeing a little bit of a positive divergence between the last few days. But on the bigger picture, we actually are still looking at a negative divergence, right, based on this move here on the higher low, and also a flat low on the advanced decline. And also, we are basically still looking at this divergence, this negative divergence. So again, even though that made a little progress with the S&P 500 making a new, lower low, while the advanced decline, cumulative advanced decline line made a higher low so far. But we never know, right? On Monday, it could come back down and put in a lower low. Now, looking at the Nasdaq market here, for the Nasdaq 100, we see that the up-down volume ratio and the advanced decline was actually positive on Friday, while the Nasdaq 100 lost 82 point or 0.39%, 0.4%. So on a negative day, where the Nasdaq is actually had a little bit more positive breadth than the New York Stock Exchange. But that slight positive AD and also the up-down volume ratio did not translate into the new high, new low. We're still seeing 393 more new low than new high on Friday. you can see 442 stock made new 52-week low versus 49 stock in the Nasdaq market made new 52-week high. And here on the cumulative AD line, one would say we are seeing a little bit of a positive divergence, but that is not the big picture that we are paying attention to. We are essentially paying attention to this little bit of a lower low on the advanced decline line versus the higher low on the Nasdaq 100, and also basically this massive divergence here. So that has to be resolved. So right now we're still waiting for the Nasdaq 100 to pull back a little bit more, and maybe we see the advanced decline make a little bit more improvement before we can make some sort of a statement saying that there is a turnaround, or could be a turnaround in the Nasdaq. Now let's go and take a look at the price action of the S&P 500 and the other major market indexes. Now let's take a look at the daily chart of the S&P 500. As you can see, this was Wednesday here. We have this nice rally up, and on Thursday we actually made a peak above this high. It looked like it was coming up to this 47.43, the previous all-time high here. Then all of a sudden we got this big, huge reversal down, and on Friday it continued to pull back and ended up giving up all the gain that was made on Wednesday and plus more. So it ended up the week with a loss, and right now we're basically just watching to see, will this continue to come down and back into this retracement zone? Remember this 61.8 and this 38.2 retracement zone, and there is this prior high here near 45.85. So that's a little bit of a level to keep an eye on, but we're essentially watching this 50% level here at 45.17 and possibly come down and fill these two gap here that is still left open. So that would be on the downside scenario to keep an eye on, because right now, this 50% level, 45.17, is pretty much in confluence with this trend line here. And on the upside, if it could come back up, then basically we're just looking for this all-time high to get taken out. And I will tell you why we are still looking at this all-time high, or remind you why we are still looking at this potential all-time high at the end of the video. And if we take a look at the SPY, the ETF for the S&P 500, this is the 16-minute chart here. We see that there is this little high volume node here. We want to see, would it come down here and chop around and get a bounce back up to this high volume node, and then possibly make its way back up to this 466.5 here at this big area here. Maybe it could chop around and then move itself back up to the all-time high up near the 474 level. Or would it continue to come down and tag this composite value area low somewhere around this to 454 area, and it might even drop down to this low volume zone here, this low volume node near 451. So that would be some of the downside level to keep an eye on, these price zone. And then the upside is basically coming back up to this high volume zone here up at above the 466 area. And for the Nasdaq, the Nasdaq 100, you can see that it came down to this zone here and try to get a bounce back up. So we're going to see, would it be able to come back up and take out this trend line here and get back into, above this pivot high, somewhere around this 16,445 at this 127 extension. But if it continue to break down and dip below this zone, then look for the next zone that would be targeting, and that would be somewhere around 15,345. And that would also put it in confluence with this trend line here, essentially the lower trend line of this price channel. And if we look at the QQQ, the ETF for the Nasdaq 100, you see on the downside here, we got a little bit of a low volume zone here at 383. So we're going to see if we get a rejection and pushes back up, because that would also move the price into this composite, value area here. And if it doesn't pop back out and move back up to this 387, then we could see that it could come down and get down to this 378 area, the next low volume nose here, and then possibly work itself further down. And let me shift this up here, and you can see that there is this composite point of control down here at 365. So there are quite a few of these low volume node down here. We got to see would it be able to hold, I would say, the 378 and 55, 379 area. And if it doesn't hold this level, then look for this thing to possibly work itself down to this 374 and then toward this 372. And for the Russell 2000, it came down and dipped below this 2134 level, essentially have retraced, all the way down to this lower level of this consolidation of balance area. So right now, it's still inside of this balance area. I want to see would it be able to get back above this 2195 and see would it be able to work itself back up for this 2317, or would it continue to break and dip below the 2134, then look for a back test. And if it failed that back test, then look for a reversal and come down to this somewhere around this 1935, 1951 area. So for the IWM, the ETF for the Russell 2000, I want to see would it be able to bounce off of this 214 and come back up to this point of control, this composite point of control here, somewhere around 222 area. But if it dipped below this 214, look for this possibility of coming down to this 204.84 or 205 area. Now let's take a look at the Dow Jones Transportation. The Dow Jones Transportation is still underneath this declining trend line here. So we're still watching to see would it be able to continue to come down and tag this, this pivot high, pivot low here, this support resistance level at 15,346 area, and see would it be able to hold that level. And if it doesn't, then we're basically looking for this gap to get filled, dipping below this 15,000 level here. And for the upside, if we could get above this 16,170 area, then maybe it could work itself up and fill this gap and possibly come up toward this 17,000. So there's a lot of upside hurdle for it to get over before it actually getting back close to this all-time closing high. So right now, the bias is pretty much on the downside for the transportation. And looking at the Dow Jones Industrial, you see that on Thursday, it was trying to make a move up to this trend line here. And then on Friday, just continue on this pullback. So keep an eye on this 35,150 and see what it dip below that and come back into this balance area. And if it does, remember, just like the Russell 2000, someone front run this low here. So if it come back into this balance area, we could see this 33,800 get tagged, essentially the bottom of this balance area. And this market index, the New York Stock Exchange Composite, you see that it failed to continue and take out this high close above this pivot high here. And right now it's coming back inside of this balance area. So we're going to keep an eye on it to see would it continue to pull back down and tag this 16,094. Remember the Russell 2000 and also the Dow Jones Industrial was sort of front run this low here on the previous pullback. So right now with the dipping back inside of this balance area, going to see would it continue to come back down and tag this lower boundary of this balance area the second time around. Now let's take a look at Apple, one of the S&P 500 stock, and we know Apple has a lot of influence on the S&P 500 because of its weighting factor on that index. As you can see, we are using this fixed range volume profile, and I have put out a video to show how to use this free tool in TradingView. And right now, basically using that to set up the composite and identify some of the low volume zone, and basically looking for price reaction at those low volume zone. you can see Apple came down to this low volume zone here, and right now it seems to be coming to. So the next thing that we're going to watch is this low volume zone here, and see would it get a rejection and get it back up above this 172 area, because the next volume zone is down at this 168. So if we do not get much of a rejection, in other words, a bounce off of that, then look for the price to come down to this high volume node here that would be somewhere around 160, because that's where the liquidity could be, the next point, price level where there are a lot of liquidity. In other words, a lot of buyer and seller find the price to be acceptable to both parties to transact business. And if this doesn't hold, then we expect it to come down to this low volume zone and essentially testing this high here, somewhere around the 155, 156. Now, if it could get back above this 172, watch this 180 level, because this could be a rejection zone, or in other words, it could be a supply area where there are a lot of sellers waiting to sell. So we'll see. It could be, once it take out some of the seller here, there might be a fresh set of buyer that will push it up to a new high. But that is a big if right now. And we basically want to see how it react inside of this low volume zone here to see which one will break. Will it break above the top one, or will it break below the lower one? If it breaks below the lower one, again, we're basically looking at this level here, 160, and see would it be able to get a bounce off of that. And if it doesn't, then we're essentially looking at this 155, 156. And the other stock that have a lot of influence on the S&P 500, and also a lot of the market participants or the market operators like to use to push the index up and down, is Tesla. So right now we're basically looking at a hourly chart, the 60-minute chart of Tesla. And also I basically generate a composite profile here just to look at the recent price swing down to identify some potential high volume node and low volume node. And as you can see on Friday, let me zoom this in. On Friday here near the low here, you see that not much of a volume got transacted here. So we basically got a lot of rejection when it got down to this $910 level or below the 910, and buyer just stepped in, and seller doesn't want to sell at this lower prices. So the buyer had to bid it up, and it moved the price back up and went back above this 944. Essentially went back into this high volume area, and you see that there are a lot of transaction between this 944 and the 933 area. So right now we want to see would there be a bounce back up above this 944 next week. If there could be enough buyer to push this above the 944, then we probably will see Tesla to come up and try to get up to this 982 area, this next low volume zone, to see will we get a rejection and get a push back down, then see how it would react when it come back down to the 944. Would it basically come down and retrace this zone here, or would it basically just come up, and take out this 982 and get back up above this 1,000 level here? So that's basically what we're going to be keeping an eye on Tesla, and also with Apple, to see what the price action going to look like and how it's going to behave in the coming week. Now, next week is a short week because of Christmas, fall on a Saturday. So we basically have Christmas Eve off. The market will be closed on Friday on Christmas Eve. So there's only 4 trading days, and let's see what kind of positive or negative price action from these two stocks, and that will kind of give us a general direction of where the S&P 500 will most likely be headed. And before I end this video, let me remind ourselves that there is still this poor high and also this Globex all-time high from the E-mini S&P 500, the ES. And this kind of give us some sign that there could be a possible another new all-time high from the S&P 500 when the E-mini S&P 500 future comes up and take out these high. So maybe we could see that before the end of the year or at the beginning of the year. So we just have to see how much more of a pullback we're going to see from the S&P 500 and also from the ES before we see a turnaround and move back up toward the high. So thank you for watching, and be sure to smash that thumbs up, help me share and promote this video, and wish everyone a safe and a happy holiday.